I ruined my parents' relationship over reading mail. Original post. I, 24 female, don't want to say what I do for work, but let's just say it's the type of job that includes a lot of written letters from clients that are supposed to be confidential and only for my eyes. I'm fresh out of college and living with my parents so I can finish paying off for school. My work letters, of course, go to my parents' address since they live miles away from a post office and driving to a P.O. box is a huge pain. The issue started with my father. Ever since high school when I received mail, my dad would open it. Whenever I received Christmas/birthday cards in the mail with money in them, my dad would hand me the card and insist he'll keep the money for me until I demanded he hand it over. Any package I would order for myself he would open and hand it to me. Sometimes, the products were used by him as well. The final straw was when he received my acceptance letter to my dream college, and instead of waiting for me to come home to open it, he opened it himself and called me while I was at work to congratulate me. I've spoken to my mother about how much this makes me feel uncomfortable, and she told me she'd speak to my father about it, to which he would apologize and not do it for a week, before doing it again the next week. I had also spoken to my dad about the confidentiality of the mail I would be receiving now that I'm working, and he says he understands. But it all came crashing down a few weeks ago. While I was working, my dad came into my room and handed me opened envelopes from my clients and even tried to have a conversation about it with me. But I just ignored him until he got the hint and left. After work, I yelled at him for violating client confidentiality, to which he got defensive and said that I live in his house and any mail sent to his house would be read by him. Furious, that next week I thought I would take revenge on my father by going to the mailbox and read his mail. But what I found was what ended my relationship with him. I had found credit card statements on jewelry and restaurants that were too fancy for my dad to go to alone. And I don't remember the last time my dad took my mom on a date, nor bought her new jewelry. I also found a letter addressed to my dad from a woman who stated how tired she was for hiding this relationship for so long and how she's so desperate for his letters to reach her. When my dad noticed the mailbox was empty, my dad ran back in the house as white as a ghost. He walked into the kitchen to see me and my mom in the kitchen reading his mail. Before the fighting could start, my mom asked me to leave the house. So I drove to my aunt's who lives 45 minutes away and explained everything. I came back after 2 days when my dad's stuff was gone. My mom told me my dad's living in a hotel now and she will be in contact with a divorce attorney. Turns out, my dad has been having an affair with a family friend, and we're hiding it through letters to leave no digital footprint. My dad ended up showing my mom the stash of letters he had, and she took photos of each and every single letter before she asked him to leave. I feel at fault because I at first wanted to be petty with my dad, but it unraveled into this huge event and made me think, no wonder he's been looking through my stuff. He was giving himself away. I also feel like I shattered my mom's world, since I can hear her cry every night about it since the incident. Now for the top advice before reading the update. You didn't ruin your parents' relationship. Your dad having an affair did. You just found out about it and gave your mom the chance to make an informed decision with all the facts on whether she wanted to be in a marriage with a cheater. I feel at fault because I at first wanted to be petty with my dad, but it unraveled into this huge event. Nope, your dad is the guilty party here. In the US, it's illegal to open other people's mail. It's unethical to read, let alone discuss, confidential information, especially when it's not even your job. Finally, your dad was cheating on your mom and clearly not giving her the attention and respect she deserves. He made a mess. You simply tripped over it. Yeah, I would have reported him to the feds a long time ago, especially actually stealing what was inside. She should still report him for reading the client mail if it doesn't hurt her job. His insane mail rule wasn't about invading your privacy. That was a bonus for him. It was about covering his butt for as long as possible. He did it to himself. Yep, he also 100% wanted to make sure his mistress didn't send his household any surprises in the mail. Yep, it would have come out eventually. If he was cheating with a family friend, then I would assume eventually she would have gotten fed up with waiting and just said screw it and confronted him at home. The fact that he hid it so long is surprising. But dirty secrets don't stay hidden forever. Edit/update. Thank you all so much. I wrote this all out last night drunk off my mind, and I never expected this much kindness from strangers. I'll go ahead and answer a few questions here and then give an update. 1. Was my dad using my money from the gifts to buy stuff for his mistress? I'm 50-50 on this answer. I received cards when I was young with money, and it was the same routine. Aunts and uncles would leave $100 per card, and my dad always gave them to me when I was younger. As I got older, obviously the money reduced to $20 to $40. I do believe my dad would give me back half my money in those cards back, which would make sense as to how he was able to make such huge expenses on his mistress. I need to collect proper evidence, so I plan on calling my aunts and uncles and other relatives who would send me money. 2. The mistress would send letters addressed as a business or a credit card company. If you ask me, they were doing the most. When my mom would check the mail, she would see the letters that were addressed to my dad as bills or some crazy BS, and never opened them because she doesn't handle the bills. A lot of packages were sent by the mistress as well, which is why he went through my packages, and I don't want to imagine what kind of crap she was mailing him. Now for the update. Like I said before, it's been a few weeks since it happened. I've been doing my best to comfort my mother while she deals with all the legal business, and my dad's constant appeals to my mom to apologize and beg for forgiveness. I've been here to listen to her, and she keeps spiraling between wanting to forgive him and cursing him to hell. I told her my own personal opinion, which was to never take back a cheater. She did basically everything for him, and she shouldn't see it as her not being enough for him. That's his fault for not appreciating her. The mistress was also a married woman, and my mom reached out to her husband, sending him the letters she had taken photos of, even had a long phone call with him about what was going on. He initiated a divorce, and the mistress is now angry at my father for not being more careful. The mistress's ex-husband, who I'll call Henry, has been a best friend of my mom's throughout the legal cases. I hear the mistress is still reaching out to him to forgive, which I honestly think is very funny, since my dad is doing the same thing. She was financially dependent on Henry, and my dad isn't making enough at his job to support the lifestyle she wants. Yesterday, Henry asked my mom to come out to lunch with him. They've been sad shut-ins for the past few days now, and they agreed to go and get some fresh air. I encouraged my mom to do such, and to call me if my dad or the mistress decide to show their faces when they went, just so I could pick her up. My dad hasn't apologized to me at all about reading my mail. In fact, he's called me and left me voicemails, telling me that this whole situation was my fault. Then go on crying, saying he regrets everything and he hopes he can still be my dad. I honestly don't know what to do with him right now, other than ignore him. I don't know if there will be another update, but I will if something major happens. Again, thank you so much for the supportive comments, and I hope some of what I said cleared things up for you all. Next story. I hate that my husband refuses to share his inheritance with his brother, but I don't know if it's my place to say anything. My female 37 husband, male 37, has an older half-brother, male 45. My father-in-law was married, and his wife cheated on him with his best friend. When he found out, he was devastated. According to others, he was never the same afterwards. He got divorced and never saw her or his son again. He got remarried and had my husband. He passed away a month ago, and my husband was devastated, and still is. In his will, father-in-law left everything to my husband and nothing to his other son. It broke me that he did this to his firstborn. Throughout the years, many tests were done, and father-in-law is the father, and yet he hated his son as much as he hated his ex-wife. My brother-in-law didn't have a great life either, since his mother married her lover and got more children, and brother-in-law wasn't treated well by his stepdad. My husband refuses to share the inheritance, saying that he did nothing wrong and that his father would have left something if he wished. I don't know. I feel like my husband is acting out of greed and nothing else. My heart breaks for brother-in-law, who never had a love and security of having loving parents. My husband's actions are a huge turn-off for me too. I think of my children and to think they would be punished for something I do. I cry every night thinking about all of this. Am I out of place if I intervened? If I'd tried to meddle? I feel like I can't stand idle for much longer. If my wife had serious reservations about a decision I was making, I would want to know about it. I might not agree with her, and it might not change my decision, but I would hate to find out that she was quietly disappointed in me and telling the internet instead of me. I agree with this. I bounce everything off my husband, whether it directly impacts him or not, and he does the same. I would share my opinion and then drop it. At the end of the day, it's his call. OP, if the roles were reversed, what would your husband likely say to you? Do you think he would share similar reservations? Would he defer to you to decide what's best, being that it's your family? I find doing a role reversal can sometimes help clear things up. Does your husband have any relationship towards his brother? Because if not, then he doesn't owe him anything. Even if he does have a relationship with his brother, he still doesn't owe him anything. Would it be nice? Sure, but he owes him nothing. This would make sense as to why the husband doesn't feel the need to share it. He's probably thinking of his own family with OP while his estranged brother is a stranger to him. OP, you might want to consider this from another perspective. To you, family is blood. To others, family is those who you bond with. Maybe it's not a morality issue coming from your husband, but a way that he sees and understands family and what he's obligated to do. Exactly my point. If OP's husband barely even knows his brother, why is he entitled to the money? Also, I also want to know who asked who for the money. And if that's the case, I would say OP is reading too much into the situation and applying too much judgment without understanding versus knowing or hearing the reason for her husband's perspective. OP, I think you should suspend judgment for a bit here and stop ruminating on how you'd feel with your children. That's a bad track to be on, and you're making your husband into a character he might not be. It's definitely not your place to say anything about this. That is a family trauma that does not include you, and you saying something about it is going to stir the pot and just cause anger from your husband and bring up bad memories. He's completely right in saying his dad would have left the other son stuff if he wanted to. Leave this be. There's no way she knows exactly what went down. The brother could have rejected the father. We don't know. She really needs to stay out of it and not have feelings about it. She's being dramatic. Edit? I'm sorry. I've received over 500 comments and tens of chat requests. I can't read all of them, but thank you for the advice. I love my husband, and I always thought highly of him. I don't want that to change. I feel safe with him, and I don't want to lose that either. I need to give him time to grieve and be there for him now. But I know myself well. I will need to talk to him about all of this eventually, or it would affect my marriage in a negative way. Thank you and have a great weekend. Last story. Am I the a-hole for abandoning my parents? I, 22, abandoned my parents and don't plan on coming back. This all started back in my sophomore year of high school. I just finished the hardest year of my life at this private academy. The school was extremely strict, and I was used to public schools. My parents said in the beginning of the school year that it was only gonna last a year, and that I would be back in public schools once we finished moving. Till this day, I don't know why I didn't just go to my district school, but whatever. I ended up attending the rest of my high school years at that strict school and missed out on events that I've always wanted to be a part of, like prom or the senior pranks. I made some friends at the academy that weren't completely brainwashed by the system and were actually functional human beings. They were planning on going to college in Florida. I lived in Chicago and I thought it would be perfectly fine to go, since people leave their home state to go to college all the time. I was wrong. My parents started throwing a fit and said that if I didn't go according to their plan that they had set out, that I would miss out on inheriting the businesses that they owned. I was basically forced to stay because my entire career choice was made on the fact that I would run the businesses when my parents retire. Midway through my second year of college, they stopped paying my tuition fees and refused to answer any of my calls regarding why. So, I ended up dropping out of that college and instead went to a community college. I understand it's their money, but it was also their choice to put me in that college. I'm now switching career paths and heading into real estate because I can't handle the toxicity that comes from my parents. I ended up breaking contact with them and moved out of state. When I did, they called me and said that if I didn't come back, I wouldn't get my spot in the businesses. I'm currently living in Florida with my old high school friends. I know for sure I'm not getting any inheritance, but on the other hand, I'm also getting to make my own choices now. The only thing I've heard about them through family is that they ended up retiring early and now live in Puerto Rico. It sounds like they abandoned you, not you them. You just moved on with your life afterwards. Not a-hole. This, big time. Not a-hole. I don't need details, but I bet if OP thinks about it, this will not be the only manipulative scheming their parents have done. Not a-hole. OP, talk to someone in the financial aid at your school about how to assure they can no longer claim you as a dependent. Someone I love had to do this to help cover part of her college expenses, with grants and some financial aid. It might also assure you get a refund on taxes they want to claim. Each state is different, but a person I know was able to do this with some documentation and the help of state courts. The financial aid people at your college have potentially dealt with this, and they may be able to point you towards the step in the process. You may or may not need grants and financial aid money, but it can take a while for this process. So better to start now just in case. Sorry your family's horrible. You don't deserve to be treated this way by people who claim to be adults. Don't be ashamed to get therapy, because it sounds like a lifetime of bad behavior and possible abuse on their parts. Many colleges have therapy access or offer support groups if you can't afford it on your own. Dealing with this while you're young will make the rest of your life easier. Ick, there's something wrong with them. The best thing you can do is stay no contact. Do you have siblings? I fear for them if you do. I have a half-sister in Guatemala, but my parents never took it to court for custody.